What's up, everybody? Here I am back again with some more Infernoble content. Yesterday I went to the Stone Mountain, Georgia regionals, and there was 350 players. It was 9 rounds, and I ended up finishing 24th, so I went 7-2. My first 2 losses were, or my only 2 losses were in the first 4 rounds, and then I went on like an insane streak to close it out. My matchups, I played against 4 Unchained. Both of my losses were to Unchained. That deck is legit. That deck is actually really scary. I also played against a Labyrinth Unchained. So you could technically say that half of my matchups yesterday were against Unchained. So that was 5 of my matches. I also played against a Cash, a Purely, Earth Machine, and then I played against like some Blue Eyes Assault Synchron Pile combo deck, which was really weird. Yeah, my only 2 losses were to Unchained. That deck's actually pretty scary, I'm not gonna lie. My goal was to kind of cut back on my engine a little bit and play more going second cards. It's a build where my main focus was to make going second easier if I lose the die roll, which was actually a good choice on my part because I think I lost 5 out of 9 die rolls yesterday. So having built my deck this way actually did pay off. So let me go ahead and get into this and I'll explain some of my cards. So Connector, don't play the Battle and Boxer stuff because I got drolled an endless amount of times yesterday. And Connector being able to rip the droll that everybody is playing is really nice. And it forces people to like use their Ash in really weird ways. I also did something funny against the Labyrinth player where I made Isolde before I used Aqua Dolphin, and then I used Aqua Dolphin and ripped a Oriana out of their hand because it has 16 and Isolde has 16. So it is very funny. I think Connector is the way to go while Droll is in the format, but if we ever get into a format where Droll isn't everywhere, I might try the Battle and Boxer stuff for the Flameveil counter search. And then I played 3 Ogier. I want to see at least one of these every game. My deck is 41 cards, by the way. So the ratio of drawing at least one of these is like pretty high. And even if you draw both of them at the same time, it's really not that bad, because you can just discard it. 3 Renaud is just the best extender. It's one of the best grind game tools. Sets up anti-Nibiru combos. I played 2 Oliver. I really like double Oliver because it helps like unclog hands. There's also a lot of times where you just want to discard stuff, like discarding an equip spell, so that you can get Gearfried out easier, because you can banish it from grave, or being able to discard the Turpin that you hard draw sometimes, which really sucks. But I really like Oliver. I think it's the most flexible extender in the deck. So I played it 2, because I don't mind seeing it in my hand. And then the 1 Turpin and the 1 Richard. This is pretty much all you need just for the Isolde combos and among other things. I only played 1 Lady and 1 Gearfried, and this is the last of like my engine monsters. I used to play 2 Gearfried. I cut it down to 1 because I figured, well, number 1, I wanted more space for non-engine. That's the main reason. And Gearfried is like so easily accessible now if your combo resolves. I did also hard draw it quite a bit, which is pretty fortunate in the hands that I did hard draw it. But it's so easily searchable, and it can be really clunky in your hand sometimes if you don't draw an equip spell. So I like just being able to search it when like you're setting up, not necessarily hard drawing it all the time. And then I just played the 1 Lady because it's just like the most easily searchable extender. You can search it off of basically anything in the deck except Heritage, but Heritage can also grab Durandal, which grabs you this. Fireflint Lady's just the best. It also helps you unbrick your Richard, Like if you hard draw Richard and you're going for your combo line, you can summon Lady off of Isolde, and then tribute to summon Richard, and then Richard bring back like Ogier. So it's also a nice Isolde target if you like brick on Richard in your hand. And then for the spells, 3 Museum. I'm still on 3 Museum. Yeah, it just comes in clutch a lot. It's really bad into Droll, like really bad. If you start with Museum to search Durandal and you get Drolled, it's just like the worst feeling ever. There was also one of my losses was actually game 3. I drew all 3 copies of Museum and a Durandal. So I basically just had like a whole bunch of dead cards in my hand playing into like full Unchained combo. But that's not really Museum's fault. It's just like super unlucky. I already had the Durandal in hand, so the Museum searches just really didn't do anything for me. And then obviously 3 Heritage, Rhoda, and 3 Durandals. Just all the searchers. This is basically the reason why you can cut back on so many monsters in the deck. Like you'll notice that my monster count is really not that high compared to other Infernoble lists. But the more I play the deck, the more I realize that you really don't need just like a bunch of monsters if you have all of these searchers. It is a upside, but it's also a downside when Droll is around. Usually with 1 monster in hand and then like 1 search spell, you can usually play through Droll a decent amount and still put up a decent board. So I just really liked these ratios. They actually felt really good. I basically never bricked, except for that one time I drew the 3 Museum and the 1 Durandal. But basically I always found engine, even through Droll. There was maybe 1 or 2 games where I didn't like draw full combo in hand. So you really don't need to be playing like a whole bunch of monsters and stuff. Like I don't play Maugis, I don't play Roland, I don't play Red Layer, because there's just so many searchers, you really don't need it. You pretty much always find engine no matter what. And then the random other equips, Almace, Joyeuse, Fossil, Phoenix Blade, and then the last spell is Called By. Called By was really good. Every time I drew it, I like won. Well, every time I drew it going first, I won. If I drew it going second, I was like pissed off. And then these are my equips. These are self-explanatory. I did play Living Fossil instead of DDR. I think DDR, for the most part, is a win more card. Other than the times where you use DDR to like combo through Nibiru, that's like the only time DDR has an advantage over Living Fossil, I think, just in a general sense. But like I said, I was building my deck to be a little bit better, having to blind second if I lose the die roll in game 1. And DDR requires a little bit too much setup, in my opinion, to be good, like going second after losing the die roll. Whereas Living Fossil is just always going to be live, right? There's times where you won't always be able to get a monster in the banish pile if you can't stick an Isolde on the board. But having the Living Fossils just means like anything in your graveyard is now an extender. So it just helps you combo through boards a little bit better without having to have like Phoenix Blade set up or Isolde dumping Phoenix Blade, things like that. And it did help out quite a bit. It's really good bait for the DDD Xyz that Unchained makes, because they get scared because you activate an effect that special summons and then you just bait it out. And then like talents take it or something and make a Zeus. So that's always funny. And then my non-engine, I played 10 non-engine in a 41 card deck. Pretty high by Infernoble standards. Usually you only see like 8 or 9. I really wanted a compact, tight list with good non-engine. So I think the 3 Ash, the 3 Droll, the 2 books, and the 2 tactics were really nice. The books felt kind of mid, but that's only because half of my matchups were Unchained and they don't give a shit. I wish... I mean, I don't wish that I played against more Purely and Cash, but the Book of Moons would have felt way more useful against those matchups than Unchained, because they just really don't care. Tactics is always funny, because you can, like, rip more cards out of your opponent's hand after, like, an Aqua Dolphin and stuff. Droll is the boogeyman of the format, obviously, and then Ash is just overall solid. Ash was really good against all my Unchained matchups, so... And even against Branded, which I didn't play, or like the Branded Chimera decks, still really nice. I'd still prefer Ash over Imperm, in my opinion. And then extra deck, this is not going to be anything new, I don't think. It's just 2 Angelica, 2 Charles, 1 Roland. I got my Roland ripped once, because I only played against 1 Kashtira. The rest of the time, having 1 Roland was perfectly fine. And then Barone, and then Laud Salen. I summoned Laud Salen like twice to try to play around Nib, which was really funny, because my opponents did have Nib every time I summoned it. So, make sure you're playing that guy. It's always really useful. And then 2 Charles, 2 Isolde. I play the Flame Swordsman to like clean up board states. And then the access code. Access code was clutch. If this was power load, I would have been screwed. I'll just say that right now. Access code came in clutch so many games. I made this guy so many times and I won because of it. It cleans up boards really easily. Like just being able to make Isolde and then Ferocious Flame gives you a 42 and 2 pops. There was never a time where I was like, I need power load or I need Rotten. And then Artorigus and Zeus, I never made these a single time, I don't think. Yeah, like out of 9 rounds, I never made a single one of these. But there was always the chance, like, they're just nice to have, especially the Zeus, because there's so many Xyz monsters, right? Like you have Cash, they make an Xyz. You have Purely, they make an Xyz. They have even Unchained puts up their Xyz. So always having the option to like talents to take an Xyz and then make your own Zeus on top of it is always really nice. I never did it, but the option was always there. And it probably would have helped me out a lot, because that DDD rank 6 like is super good against this deck. I was struggling to play through that thing. And then the side deck, sorry. My side deck was actually really good. I don't think there's a single card in here that I would change. Everything felt really solid. So I'm on a thrust board of 3 Dark Ruler, 2 Tactics, Herald, and Duster. So this is my thrust board. There were times where I would like combo off game 1 and then my opponent would scoop, so I don't know what they're playing. So I'm going second, not knowing what my opponent is on. And I would always just throw in all of these, right? Because these just kind of cover almost every matchup, I would think. Right? You have Herald for Purely. You have Dark Ruler for a combo deck. You have Feather Duster for any kind of like pseudo back row deck. So all of these just felt really good. I think this covers the format pretty well. I wouldn't change any of these. They were all very nice to have. And then the MVP, Cosmic Cyclone. I got hit with a lot of anti-spells. Like I think one of my Unchained opponents hit me with 2 anti-spells in the same game. It was like game 3. I got de-barriered a lot. I got drolled a lot. I mean, this doesn't help with any of those, but like so many people are just playing like really sacky stuff. And I was expecting... This also really helps against Unchained, right? Because it doesn't trigger the effects of the back row. So if they set up the pop, you can just banish the pop trap. It's also neat going first. I would actually keep this in going first against Unchained, because when they do like their fire guy, they set a back row and then they do the fire guy targeting the back row, and then you can just chain Cosmic, banish the back row, and it like it's like a 2-for-1, honestly. So that was really funny. I did that a couple times. Cosmic Cyclone just really solid because everybody's playing like sacky back row shit that you gotta play around. Caliburn for time. This came up once. I did win in time against one person with this, which is funny. I didn't go to time a lot. I only went to time once, I think, and that won me in time that one time, so that was really good. And then everybody else is playing sacky shit, so I'm also playing sacky shit. It's the three anti-spell, 1 D-barrier. Now I only play the 1 D-barrier because I wanted it as a thrust target for if I get drolled. So if I get drolled and I draw thrust going first, then I can just thrust set the D-barrier. And against a matchup like Purely, it's really, really strong. I also tried to do it against Earth Machine, because they do all the Xyz stuff too. But I didn't draw it. But having the option to just thrust for D-barrier also felt really nice. I sided in this combo a couple times, but my opponents never really drew interaction game 3, luckily. I didn't get Dark Rulered all day, which is pretty fortunate, but also at the same time, I don't know if many people are like playing Dark Ruler, because you know, like after a match, like when people are like de-siding all of their side cards, it's like, you know, sometimes they'll lay them out on the table or whatever just to like keep track. I never saw anybody like lay out Dark Rulers. Like for a game 3 when I'm going first, I never saw people like laying out Dark Ruler. So I don't even know if people were siding Dark Ruler, honestly, which is really good for a deck like Infernoble, because that's the only card that really outs the board other than Sphere Mode. So I don't know. I don't know if people were playing Dark Ruler or not, but I never saw a single one. I never got hit by it. I never saw anybody like de-siding it. So that's pretty fortunate, actually. So maybe people aren't really respecting combo decks right now. I think people are respecting the kind of mid-rangey decks too much, like Purely, Unchained, Cash, Chimera, right? Those decks don't really lose to Dark Ruler, per se. So it is entirely possible that people aren't really, like, respecting these decks, these combo decks. Because I didn't get hit with much hate other than Droll when I was going first. But yeah, that's my deck profile. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. I'll try to answer. But it was pretty good time. I learned that Unchained is really scary, and a lot of people are playing that deck right now, which is crazy. I was walking around the venue and like there was just Unchained everywhere. There's also Purely everywhere. So those 2 decks are should be on your radar, I think, if you're going to a regional pretty soon. What are some other questions I can answer real quick? Let me look at this stuff over here. Yeah. I'm not playing Battling Boxers. I'm not playing Maugis because games always ended too quickly for this card to even be useful. I took these out, took those out. Not playing Power Load, not playing that. Yeah. Yeah, I think Maugis is a good card. It's just, the format is just filled with so many like sacky turn enders that Maugis just never really comes up. You either win the game or you lose the game based on whether or not you get sacked. That's what it felt like to me yesterday playing, is just like so many sacky stuff, and then Maugis does not help at all with those sacks. But yeah, that's about it.